Hey dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be checking out the Magic team, and there's gonna be many team compositions in this video. So this video is pretty long, but the first one we're checking out is this team whereby most top players are using right now. That is 3 Magic heroes, Eve, Anti, and Yonhee with Rangrid and Judas. So when I first saw this team, I was thinking, why exactly this team? Because why not Rudy instead of Rangrid? Then I realized, Rangrid has a potential to increase your status effect resist rate. Okay, that's one thing. Increase defense and also increase lethal rate. So it not only effectively increases the bulk of the Magic team, but also the offensive potential of the Magic team. So I think this is pretty decent. And you also have Judas, who will nerf the healing of the enemies. So that is pretty important because so many heroes right now do rely on regeneration or healing, to get their health back, especially Abel, Rudy, Fenrir. So I think Judas is also a pretty good unit that you must have on almost any team right now. Okay, but definitely not as god tier as Anti. So how I found this team to perform was pretty good, I would say, even though I'm dying right now. But most of the time you will be relying heavily on your Magic units, of course, because your support units are really just there for support, right? And if they die, then of course that's it. I've seen some other teams use similar formations like mine, whereby Rangrid and Judas are in front. You see that I'm actually facing the same exact team, by the way, so you can use that as a comparison. There's also another team formation that I saw that includes having 4 allies on the front row with 1 DPS at the back. And the DPS tends to be Anti, if I'm not wrong. So the 4 on the front row, will benefit from Rangrid's 3000 defense boost, which is gonna buff their defense by a huge ton. That combats against all the defense decreases from the enemy side of the team. One thing as well, Rangrid does pretty good fixed damage, which can effectively, get rid of very tanky units faster, I would say. And she also applies cooldown increase. So I think these are pretty useful, so-called status effects that can be applied onto the enemy so that it will help you and hold off the enemy for quite a bit. But mainly I think she's there for a little rate buff as well as defense buff, because I don't think it's good to use a Fenrir in the Magic team, because Fenrir himself is pretty frail and he offers nothing beyond lethal increase. So this match, took very long. It was really down to Anti versus Judas. Thankfully, I managed to overcome the Judas, but you saw that I was actually hit very severely way in front, and then after that Anti tried to bring the match back. Okay, here we're facing a universal team, and let's just observe how this will fare, because Rudy definitely also adds to the Magic team quite a bit. His defense increase, his block rate increase, when it starts kicking in, Magic teams get a very huge block increase as well. And whether that's comparable or not to Rangrid, it's a different story, because Rangrid helps in both ways, but Rudy really only serves as a bulk improver. And with Rangrid on the field, you can be sure to give your heroes crit weapons so that it will balance out the crit and lethal. And I think that's one aspect that makes Magic teams still hit very hard instead of them being just doing subpar damage. Yeah, but unfortunately, if you do meet a Rudy team, then you can have a very high chance of just constantly being blocked, which is not gonna help much, unfortunately. But hopefully, you still do get to crit and do lethal damage on the enemies, because if you don't have these buffers, these multipliers in play, then your damage is gonna be really low. And I've seen 3-digit figures from my team before, my units before. Of course, in the Magic team, it's really about who uses the skill nullification to protect the team faster. If you have all these set up, I think you'll be at a fine position to fight back. Unfortunately, we don't get to see rank grades damage here, but I can assure you with the fixed damage accessory, she will do very good damage. And I think one thing here is that is not mentioned outwardly is Judas, because as I said, he's nerfing the heals, so if Rudy does cast his shield, he won't be able to heal much and the enemies won't be at full health. Because sometimes the thing about Rudy is that when he heals everyone back to full health, with his buff continuing as well, it's very difficult to bring him down after that. Yeah, so Judas is there to check that. So we check the equipment right here, and the equipment for my anti stays the same throughout the whole video. Double crit, max HP, increase awakening gauge, increase skill use chance, and also survive with 1 HP. These are very important jewels that every anti should have because of a skill nullification. Now I have reset awaken skill accessory here with hide as a substat. If you don't have the reset awaken accessory here, it's okay, but you will want to go for the initiate stem set on her. Okay, take note that the initiate stem set does not stack with the reset awaken skill accessory. Then for traits, I have also sleep resist, paralyze resist, and skill use chance. Skill use chance is really important on anti because you want her to be able to cleanse early, get rid of the buff block, because your team, your magic team, will rely on having turn by turn buffs. Okay, and then you also have paralyze resist, which I think is extremely important in most of your team right now. And I also have limited traits on her to increase crit damage dealt to magic and universal enemies. Next for my Yonti, she's my speed leader, so double speed, double counter. I do have attack twice on her as an accessory. If you want a CC like electrify, that is also fine. I have lifesteal and survive 1 HP, 7/9 of O jewel. I have increased awakening gauge slightly with speed attack as the myth substat. Primarily you want the speed attack, okay, as the substat, as the jewel substat, not exactly increase awakening gauge. And I also have effect attack increase and counter rate increase. So for her traits, I've given her blind and poison because these are resistances that counter heroes do need, and paralyze is to really go against every single enemy anti. I've also given her increased speed attack damage on magic and defensive heroes so that when she lands the first proc, that will be more effective. But take note that this is not exactly the team that I constantly use, so these are my limited traits. If you're using her as your main counter hero, then try to give her counter attack damage increase instead, because that's way more efficient for damage dealing. Then we have Eve, double crit HP. Eve's equipment is also the same throughout the video. And then we also have magic attack increase, defense increase, substat, myth substat, survive from 1 HP, and crit and lethal rate. So take note of the main substat first, because these are the more important ones that you should have. If you want to give her increased awakening gauge over magic attack increase, that's also fine. Okay. For her accessory, she has willful ring, hide, and purification. Some of you may find that the willful ring is too frail for her. Right, you can use the Guardian Ring as well, that's also completely fine. And for rank grade, double lethal, double block. Okay, very high block rate for my rank grade. Physical attack and block rate increase, primarily I'm using it for the block rate increase, not the physical attack, because she deals more fixed damage, so she doesn't really need physical attack increase. I also have damage reduction and survive on 1 HP as well. For the accessory, I have increased fixed damage and application of fixed damage together with the willful ring. So this makes her a very good fixed damage dealer, and this is pretty much one of the main fixed damage accessories that you want to create for fixed damage dealers. And then for Judas, I have double crit to increase his debuff cast rate, but that's not really important right now because you have a lot of antis on the field. So his sphere won't really get casted anyway. And then we have double HP, physical attack and defense increase, mainly for defense increase I would say, crit and lethal rate, and increase awakening gauge. For Judas, the jewels may range quite a bit. You can also give him more block rate if you want, yeah, because he can be quite tanky. And for his accessories, willful ring, hide, and purification, which is the go-to accessory combination I had mentioned before in my accessory making video. Moving on, I know many of you will be thinking, okay, what about the standard magic heroes such as Skuld and Rin? So we'll cover Skuld and Rin in the next 2 to 4 videos, matches I mean. Okay, so over here we have Skuld. Now if you forgot what Skuld does, she increases the damage magic heroes do to offensive and universal enemies, and she also decreases defense over 5 turns. So she's a pretty good support unit for the magic team. Not only that though, she does pack a punch and she does, do huge damage when geared right. So it really depends on how you want to use her and how you want to gear her for that purpose. For my case, I gave her more offensive capabilities, okay, with some defensive capabilities, so we'll check that out later. And also here I'm using Rudy instead to really boost the bulk of my team, because I'm a bit concerned of the fragility of my units, because I think Skuld, even though she is very good, she's quite frail. She can be quite frail. She does decent damage here, okay, decent damage. She could really scale a lot more if your crit and lethal rates are very high, okay. But I want you to take note of the damage that she supports. Like, look at my Eve now. She did 700k, and then here another 400k with her chain. That is huge damage, and we are fighting a magic team, It's not even an offensive or universal team. So could be because the defense drop. The defense drop of 50% is really a huge deal. Take note of that. The enemy side doesn't seem to have a Rudy, if I'm not wrong. I think that's why it was pretty easy, pretty fast. So now we face a Rudy and a universal team, which is pretty much the meta team right now, and this is gonna be pretty tricky, especially since they have Abel in the back line. So the counters I'm gonna receive, the counter damage is gonna be huge, and I'm not looking forward to that. We'll see how Skuld performs. Technically, I should have offensive advantage right now over this team. Unfortunately though, the block is a real thing, and my Yonhee, isn't exactly geared on crit and lethal. So hopefully Skuld is able to do some damage here. Still alright. Still alright. The crit and lethal didn't happen, so that's unfortunate. Yeah, and I... he has the wrong skills. To be honest, I don't even know. It's about 5 turns now, but I don't even know if I've completely cleansed my buff block. So if I have not, then of course my defenses are pretty low. And take note that enemy Abel, he has a passive that reduces my defense by 30%. So when going up against universal teams now with Skuld teams, it's kind of like pretty balanced, because we have advantage in terms of damage, but they also have advantage because they reduce our defense. So it's fair game, and it really depends on how well your units are geared. But you have to try to get rid of the Abel ASAP, because if you don't, then the passive that reduces your defense by 30% will always be there, and that's not a very good thing at all. Unfortunately, I just cannot break through at this point because his block rate and defenses are stacked so high up now, and yeah, there goes my match. So there's pros and cons and things you have to consider. These are my Skuld's equips: crit and lethal, and with double block. Okay, her block rate is pretty high, so I gave her block rate. I gave her Guardian Ring and Hide. I don't have a second substat. Survive on 1 HP and increase crit and lethal rate with lethal damage as well. And for her traits, Electrify resist, Paralyze resist, and Sleep resist, so that she won't be completely immobilized if the Yonhee does slap her. Okay? You can give her magic attack increase over the block rate, but in this case I was trying to go for a more balanced approach so that she's defensively and offensively capable. Maybe that may not be the best thing. Yeah, so maybe magic attack increase would have been better for Skuld so that she will be able to do more damage. And just to talk about my Rudy as well, double lethal, max HP, physical and defense increased, so he has a lot more bulk. Look at his defense, 6,000. And he also has recovery skill so that he heals more and survive on 1 HP. He also has hide. So in fact, you know, if you saw previously, my whole team is on hide. So Abel didn't really counter much at all because my whole team was hiding and only my Yonhi was possible to be countered. But the thing I want to say about the enemy team was that, you know, if with Abel at the back, sometimes he won't get touched by attacks. He would be better off in the front actually. So with that, he'll be targeted and he will be able to counter. So here we are swapping over to Rin. My Rin uses the exact same setup as my Skuld. I just transferred everything over so you don't have to feel that there's anything new. Over here we are facing a magic team with Skuld and one Judas, so we'll see how this goes. Take note that Rin will increase my crit and lethal damage by 50% and also reduce 4-man attack damage for the same role. So basically my whole backline is gonna be protected right now with Rudy here to buff my block. So yeah, my whole team is hiding except my Yonhi, so they will naturally go for my Yonhi if they want to do basic attacks, which is not the, you know, best situation, but at least if Yonhi can counter those, that would be great. Yeah, look at the damage here. Look at the damage here. This is the effect of Rin. All damage increase. That is insane from Eve. I have not seen my Eve do that kind of damage for a very long time. Yeah, but wow. I was pleasantly surprised, you know, to 2 million! I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest, because I was very skeptical at first to try Rin. I would think that she would die very, very quickly and she would die fast and, you know, her passive won't kick in basically, so what's the point of having her? But she has lasted pretty long, maybe due to the Guardian Ring, and thankfully, you know, my Eve actually moved and helped me get rid of people, because if she didn't use that attack, I think I'll be stuck in a pretty bad matchup because I was definitely not having the advantage somehow. So yeah, that was pretty good. So here we face an offensive team, which is what Rin is meant for, right? You're supposed to use Rin against the offensive team to check the offensive team because she will incapacitate them, and that's a bonus that many people, you know, overlook or don't really take too much pay attention to, because offensive teams, you know, even though they are slowly climbing back into the meta, I think they are pretty much 50-50 now, you know, with universal teams. It is seldom that people use Rin, right? Because Rin is just pretty frail compared to what the offensive team units can do. They can heal now, they have more bulk because of Jack, but look at the damage, and my Eve just slays through 3 units at one time without even them surviving. And yep, 1 minute match. The power of Rin on a magic team. All that said, this is my favorite magic team. Okay, look at this, 8 consecutive wins at this rank. At this rank, 8 consecutive wins, I'm not joking. This is why this is my favorite magic team with Daya and Abel. Daya is here to boost your magic attack by 50%, increase your damage on universal enemies. So universal teams, you know, should be in the back for me. And then I have Abel, who is gonna counter, and that's why I say Abel should be in the front, because he will be taking all the hits, even the basic attacks, from my enemies. Now you may think that this is not exactly a very good start, yeah, and it appears to be because they have Rudy, but I do reduce their defenses by 30%. So, and I get isolated, so I won't be doing too much damage to them, it seems. But here's the way you should build this team, okay, I am quite I looked into this team quite a bit, so I can give good advice. You want to make sure that your Abel's in front, also because you don't want him to get isolated. If he gets isolated, you are losing a huge chunk of damage. So you want to have higher magic attack on your backline, and that is something that I will talk about in the equipment, okay? And then we will, you will see from there why this team can work. Thankfully for the blind, otherwise I would have been destroyed. Suffocation is actually pretty good from Daya as well, because any little thing the enemy does, they will take damage. And you know, Abel here slamming down on them also causes suffocation to proc. So that's just additional damage on top of additional damage. Not forgetting we may have dimensional attack landed on the enemies as well. Yeah, so Abel is just a huge, you know, power force, you know, maybe even better than my Eve and Yonhee. Very quickly we take them down. The role for Daya is also to give you the bleed and poison immunity, which is very important for Abel because he counters a lot and he will be taking a lot of damage as well. Especially if your entire team is on hide, and Abel usually won't be on hide, right? So he will tend to be the target for basic attacks as well. So if he is bled and poisoned, that will not be good. So Daya is also here to support him pretty well and also give him magic attack increase. And unfortunately my Yonhee dies very quickly here for whatever reason. But we'll try to overcome this. I think the enemy is actually hiding, so I cannot counter, and that's one drawback if you're using Abel. If your enemy is on a complete hide build, it's very difficult to hit back, and you will be losing out a lot of in-between, you know, damage that you can potentially do. But wow, look at Eve go. Eve is slaying a universal team. Thanks to Daya as well, because that is the power of Daya. So Daya and Skuld, you know, they work the same way but against completely different teams. Yeah, and we took down this team very quickly. We took down the universal team very quickly. And I think it's very difficult for Anti to stand up against Abel's counters because it's just so strong with the Isabella illusion. It's just really difficult. And Judas dies with suffocation. So yeah, that was my favorite team, and we'll talk about the equipment. For Yonhee, you realize I've given her a HP setup, and she's still my speed leader, but she is on HP instead. And she has magic attack, survive on 1 HP, and also speed attack, of course. I've given her electrify passive, electrify accessory, because she will help me to incapacitate or immobilize 2 units from the start, or even up to 4 because she has sleep on her effect attack as well. Right, so these are some things that could benefit you if you let Yonhee go first, because Abel is not fast enough. And of course we have Abel double speed is a must, double counter, effect attack rate increase, more counter for him so that he won't be too affected by Anti's counter rate reduction, which is 60%. Okay, so lifesteal and survive on 1 HP and crit and lethal rate. So here is the thing, you realize that I gave Yonhee magic attack increase. That is to try to boost her magic attack beyond Abel's, because otherwise Abel will be isolated by Eve, and that's not a good thing. So here is the way I try to ensure that Abel's magic attack is lower by putting him in front, as well as not giving him any sort of magic attack increase. He will have crit and lethal rate, so his counters can hit a little harder. And I think that also benefits him, and thankfully I had the Storm Stem, of course. He will want the Storm Stem and the Blessing Stem, that will be the best. If you have complete Storm set on him, that's even better, but you can go half-half as well. And of course, Guardian Ring, Isabella's Illusion to hit twice, and Purification, as well as for his traits. You don't really need Poison Resist here, and you want counter damage increase on him, of course. And for Daya, I've given her double crit so that she lands Suffocation better, double HP, cooldown increase, survive with more HP, and block rate. Her jewels are pretty difficult to give because I don't really know what she exactly needs. I don't really want her to move that too much as well because she doesn't do that much damage. So I think giving defensive jewels is primarily the way to go. I've tried Willful Ring here with height and purification. It seems to go pretty well. Previously, you know, in all my review videos and test videos, I was using Guardian Ring with purification. So Willful Ring can work as well if you have decent defensive gear for her. And basically that's all for the Magic team. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, do give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know what is your favorite Magic team in the comments. Big shout out to my channel members ZMD Phoenix and Yamaki for the support. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much and see you!